Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to Everyday Talk 24/7. This is session number 2 of Good Friday. We're doing 3 Good Friday talks today, relatively shorter than our normal talks, because I wanted to just be with you throughout the day to get the impact of this day in history, this Good Friday, of Jesus dying for our sins. This morning we looked at the great question that Pilate asked, what is truth? When faced with Jesus, who said that everyone on the side of truth stands for him. And Pilate just almost rhetorically, even bitterly, asked, what is truth? When truth is standing right there in front of him. And what's about to transpire has everything to do with truth. It's what our hope is. Because now what happens is the cross. And the cross, the execution of Jesus, execution of the guilty Jesus. Remember 2 Corinthians chapter 5. He who knew no sin became sin for us. If Jesus wasn't guilty, this execution would not have any merit, because God's wrath would not have been satisfied. So the wrath of God, the cup of his wrath, is about to be poured out on his son. And last night, if you'll recall, we talked about this agonizing moment on the Mount of Olives, where Jesus asked that this cup could be taken from him, but not my will, but yours. And he undergoes great agony. And then I want to connect, just before we start talking about the crucifixion. Recall, and this is John chapter 18, when Jesus is arrested, and they ask him, Jesus says, who do you want? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. I told you that I am he answered. If you're looking for me, then let these men go. This happened so that the words he had spoken would be fulfilled. I have not lost one of those that you gave me. Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. Jesus commanded Peter, put your sword away. Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me? See, from the anguish just a few hours before, he's now totally bought in, fully, with every fiber of his being, that doesn't ask anymore for the cup to be removed. And he says, shall I not drink the cup that the Father has given me? And then, despite Pilate's efforts to free Jesus, Jesus goes to the cross. And on the cross, the wrath of God is poured out on Jesus. The cup of wrath is poured out. It is now empty. And Jesus has secured new life with him, forgiveness for our sins, rescued us, and made possible restoration. And these horrible hours, these 3 hours that he spends on the cross, being persecuted for the sins of Jairus and all those others whom he died for, but specifically, if I'll make it personal, he hung there for me. And then, at the end of that time, we look in John's Gospel again. And again, there's so much to be said. I'm just hitting a couple of points here. At the end, when this is near, Jesus says this. Later, knowing, I'm reading in John's Gospel, chapter 19, beginning with verse 28. Later, knowing that all was now completed, so that the scriptures would be fulfilled, Jesus said, I am thirsty. A jar of wine vinegar was there, so they soaked a sponge in it, put the sponge on a stalk of hyssop plant. Interesting, hyssop was what was used in the Old Testament to use in purification. So they put the sponge on a hyssop plant, and they lifted it up to Jesus' lips. When he received the drink, he said, "It is finished." Literally, I've completed the work. With that, he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. It is finished. The cup of wrath is poured out. And you and I now have the opportunity for life that is truly life. That is our hope. That's what the cross accomplished. And we'll talk about more what this means later on tonight. But let this sink in. There's no more need for atonement. Jesus atoned for my sins. That is the hope that you and I have. That's why we can sleep this night. That's why we can have peace. We can have a relationship with God the Father, know the power of His Spirit, and the fellowship of His Son. Such a beautiful, wonderful gift. This Good Friday, it is finished. The cup has been poured out, and we are free. And that's the thought for this number 2. And I'll be back later on this evening for just final thoughts on this day. Such a wonderful blessing that we have. Such hope that we have. Because it is finished. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for watching. It is such a huge encouragement.